and others. Don't have Comcast? Find us on Roku. Go to WHPR-TV-DetroitLive.com.
Feedback. Hi, this is Theo Broughton.
And I am Thabiti Mpinda.
Inviting you to join us each Monday at 9 a.m. for Feedback,
a positive image production by Hood Research.
Encourage others to tune in each Monday on
Comcast Detroit, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, watch WHPR TV Network anywhere.
And take us along with you. Feedback.
It's you liberals who have lifted them up, Howard.
Paul, you conservatives make a mistake. You can't afford to strangle hope in people. Without hope, people become dangerous.
No, Howard, you liberals have let them invade our society. You give them jobs, political jobs.
Paul, you missed the point. It's only the smart ones we move up.
That makes it even worse.
No, we have to move them up. If we leave a smart one in the ghetto, he might develop into a leader against us. But if we raise him up into white society, we neutralize him. He feels compelled to try to act like us. He loses his identity and his racial anger, if he has any. He becomes alien to his brothers. They realize he sold them out, and they grow to hate him. He becomes worthless to them and safe for us. No, thank you. In fact, in his love for the creature comforts, except for his color, he's become one of us.
All right, all the way live right here at WHPR. Thank you all for tuning in. My name is Theo Broughton, co-founder of Hood Research, and
Thabiti, and we welcome you to the program.
Thank you all so much for being with us this morning. One of the first things I want to say is thank you so much to those of you who called on the Richard Hairston show and gave some very positive encouragement to my daughter, Michelle Broughton, who is campaigning for Wayne County Commission. The thing I want to share with you, for those who may not know, is the district, the 5th district, is within the boundaries of Myers on the west side of the city, Mound Road on the east side of the city, 8 Mile on the north side of the city, and Grand River on the south side, with the exclusion of Highland Park and Hamtramck. So if you are within those boundaries, I respectfully ask that you vote for her for Wayne County Commission. And if you're not living within those boundaries, to call someone that you know, or plural, someones that you know, and ask them to vote for her. Thank you so much. Those are some beautiful comments this morning. And no, I didn't ask anyone to call in and do that. Over the weekend, it was great. I had a wonderful time. I went on a photo shoot. Imagine me in a photo shoot. But anyway, it was fun. And I met a young man named John who tunes in. He watches the show and is appreciative of comments, etc. Over the past days, there's been some serious things going on. But before we get into that, I want you to know that as we talk about it, we're going to have Professor Michael Griggs, who teaches Black psychology and Black politics, to talk about it as well. But I want to say good morning to Errol and Vera and Barbara, to Diane, and to Carolyn and Tom, and it's just so many folks that we ran across over this weekend. To Sam and to Roy. I don't know. I know it's something you want to say hello to.
Yes, we had a wonderful meeting with Hood Research. I want to thank Sylvia, Les, Brother Errol Griffin. We just got some wonderful people, along with my street warrior Jackie and Ruth Ann, Brother Smith Bay, Sheila. It's a lot of y'all out there, and we appreciate it. And we know that you don't call in, but we appreciate you just being a part of feedback.
That's right. And I haven't heard from Lady Grace in a long time, so perhaps I can hear from her soon. Now we have with us Professor Michael Griggs. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You know, this morning I got a call saying that there's going to be a press conference sometime soon. And the press conference is because the brother, supposedly, of the man who was responsible for the death of Ayanna Jones has been giving some negative Facebook remarks. Now, I didn't have time to find out about those remarks, but this man happens to be a detective with the Detroit Police Department. Now, here in the city of Detroit, we've not had the kind of outbursts with what has gone on in Louisiana or Minnesota, and it seems that here he comes trying to stir up the masses. And I don't think he should want to do that. But today, as we hear from the chief of police, I'm looking forward to him encouraging this man to retire from the police department. Because I guess it's not impossible that they would fire him, but hey, you know how those things go. They generally seem to find a way not to. But the guy needs to retire. And because of the videotapes in both instances being shown not just around their states but around the world, there's been a lot of response. And I'd like you to share with us some of the analysis that you're able to put together over what has taken place.
Um, Thank you again. Well, you know, we've often talked about law enforcement, the history of law enforcement, how the history of law enforcement started as a slave patrol. That is the very foundation of modern policing. And their job was to constantly harass and restrict the rights and freedoms of blacks. And they have been doing that in my generation and my father's generation and the generations prior to since its inception. I was at a conference with these law enforcement maybe about 6, 7 months ago, and one of the former commanders, we talked, and I said, well, a major problem in the black community is we have two particular entities that operate off a no snitch policy, the criminals and the police department. So if you have the police department, people who are responsible supposedly to enforcing the law, and all over America they have a blue wall where they protect criminal activity among law enforcement, and we all know this. Until you reorganize and restructure the very culture of the police department, you'll continue to have individuals who feel, because of that blue wall, the no snitching policy, that they can go out and do whatever they want to whoever they want, and there will be no repercussions. And this is important for us to understand, that these actions happen because they understand they have people who support their actions or who will remain silent about these criminal actions that they do while wearing a badge.
Wow. And in the community of Louisiana, when the gentleman who was killed was having both arms held down, you know, how can they? You know, it was videotaped. How can they get away with it?
And how conveniently that both of their body cameras malfunction at the same time, but a native of the Detroit area was able to capture it on his phone. Otherwise, their story would have stuck that he had a gun and nobody would have been the wiser. It's sad that they're willing to lie, play cover up, but in these days and times, it's almost impossible to do that.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'm glad you bring that up because this Thursday, this coming Thursday, I believe that is the 14th of July, right? At St. Stephen's Church, the police commissioners will be meeting. Each month they have a meeting out in the community. And it is an opportunity to attend that meeting and speak to the police commissioners. One of their responsibilities is to take complaints from the community. we had Police Commissioner Ricardo Moore on with us to talk about their responsibilities and what the community can do and should do. The meeting is at 6 o'clock at St. Stephen's Church, and that's on what is it, 600 Hunt Street. That sounds like a new street over there, but is this coming Thursday, and you should consider attending that meeting. That's where a number of people from the community do come out. The police commissioners meet every Thursday unless it's Thanksgiving or some other holiday on Thursday. And that's at the main headquarters. But that one Thursday of the month is a good time for you to attend. And this particular Thursday would be a good opportunity for you to voice your concern about this Detective Wheatley and what he has said. And perhaps before that, we may see the press conference that the chief of police is supposed to have today. You know, one of the concerns that that I have about this type of situation is when the conversation comes up, you have people in our community saying, "Well, what about black on black crime? What about it? That's not the subject." But what is your response in that instance? It seems like people are trying to change the subject, be they white, black, or other.
Of course, and as if we can't acknowledge this problem, they throw a whole bunch of other problems in for you to look at. Not saying that we don't have a problem in our community with criminality, but let's
Right.
focus on the very people who we pay who should not be engaged in criminality. We don't control criminals in our community. They're not responsible to the taxpayers, but police officers are. And if anyone, you can be a lay student of history. We clearly understand that state-sponsored criminality is the worst form of criminality. That's where slavery comes from. That's where the extermination of Native Americans came from. That's where the Holocaust came from. When you have the government, individuals within the government who are paid by the government, when they engage in criminal activity, that's something you should really keep your eye on. Not saying that you shouldn't acknowledge other things as well, but right now, the longest movement against law enforcement protests has been the Black Lives Matter movement, and they're trying to do something to change the policies and things of police. And other folks, if they want to look at other things in our community, well, we need more hands on deck. That's fine. But right now, a lot of folks are engaged at state-sponsored criminality, where you have people within the state who get paid from the taxpayers. They have a blue wall of silence, and they are condoning criminality that's taking place inside of the police departments.
There should be checks and balances. This coming Thursday, I intend to go to the police commission meeting and talk about checks and balances. And Thabiti just brought up the fact that those two officers reported that their cameras didn't work. Well, I don't believe that. I have some suggestions of checks and balances that I'm going to present this Thursday so that that doesn't happen here in the city of Detroit.
We have a couple of callers.
Sure.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Would you share your name, how you're viewing us, and what city, please?
Good morning. I'm in Detroit. This is Lasso viewing you on Comcast Channel 91.
Thanks for calling.
I just wanted to read to you what Nat Weekly told on the Facebook. He
Okay.
says, for the first time in my nearly 17 years as a law enforcement officer, I contemplated calling into work in response to the outrageous act perpetuated against my brothers. It seems likely that only response that will demonstrate our importance to society as a whole. The only racists here are the piece of SHIT, Black Lives Matter, terrorists, and their supporters.
You know, it's interesting that white cops killed two young black men, and that gets skipped over to put the blame on an organization called Black Lives Matter, as if they don't. So that's what
So,
we
you know,
need.
once again, in their minds, they do know crime, but they want to say that it's wrong for other groups of people to fight for their rights in their lives. Thank you for taking my call. Just
Thank-
wanted to get you that
Yeah,
information
thank you for
on
reading.
Ned Wheatley, who is the brother of the officer that killed that young, innocent black child, Ayanna.
Right, right.
Okay.
Thanks for calling in with that. I'm so glad that she did, because I didn't have a chance to check it before coming to the station. Oh boy, and he's a detective too. You would think that he has had enough experience over 17 years. She said he was on the force to know, for well, one, that statement should never have been made, and two, to blame it on somebody else, a group that has been established to do good.
You know, I'm glad that he did that, because one of the things it is, it exposes, number one, his mindset, and the fact that nothing else matters, but as Professor Griggs has indicated, that we protect our own. And all else don't matter. We'll go to this next caller now. Hello, caller. You're on the air. Would you share your name, how you're viewing us, what city, please?
Good morning. This is Dee Dee. I'm viewing you on my cell phone,
Thank you
and
for calling.
calling from Detroit.
All right.
Professor Griggs, two quick points I'd like to make. Number one, they're saying that police officers do not have to be interviewed for 14 days in some states and 30 days in some states. So the prosecutor or anyone, they have free reign, in my opinion, to intimidate witnesses that would testify against them. Why is it that they have such a long time before anyone interviews them?
Okay. Well, for
If they commit a crime, like what just happened this week.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. So they can get their stories correct. In any other situation when someone commits a crime or is alleged to commit a crime, you immediately go and get testimony, for this way you can try to capture what really happened. The person doesn't have time to think about all the nuances and the particulars that's taking place. But with police, they allow them, sometimes, like she said, for weeks, to think about the right things and the right narratives to say and the right defense. So when they go in, they have a story that complies with all the rules and regulations that they were supposed to follow. To a great extent, this is why they get exonerated. That's one aspect of it. The other dynamic is this system, the collusion in this system. One thing we need to have is independent outsiders come in and investigate all these type of shootings. When we have a prosecutor whose job depends on a healthy relationship with law enforcement, it's difficult and very compromising to put that prosecutor in a position where she has or he has to come down hard on police officers who they depend on to have a job. And they stand in front of judges where these police officers often have some type of relationship with judges. When the judges see them, they're coming in and out to testify to put criminals away. There too, this judge, to some degree, is biased. This is why a lot of law enforcement officers who get caught up in situations like this, they disproportionately ask for bench trials, and they typically get exonerated when they get a bench trial. They get convicted more when they have a jury, because juries don't have a relationship with these cops, don't know them from Adam. They just hear the circumstances. But a lot of cops ask for bench trials. So this long time to ask them questions about what happened, the 14 days or a month in some respects, and asking for bench trials weighs heavily in the favor of law enforcement officers. So you have all of this collusion that's going on, which makes it difficult and kind of inspire these guys to think that they can get away with whatever, because the prosecutor they know, the judges they know, and the department has a blue wall of silence that supports them.
Dee Dee?
Heather Mack has a book out. She's from the Manhattan Institute. She's a senior fellow. The War on Cops. She was interviewed last night by Professor Dolores Jones Brown from the John Jay College on C-SPAN 3. The data that Heather Mack is putting out about the black neighborhoods, the city, she claims it's data that more blacks, it was so racist. I've seen her on CNN. I've seen her on Fox. This is the first time last night that they had someone, Dolores Brown, challenge her to the poison that she's throwing out there about the black community and why we need police officers to protect us because we're too stupid as a people to protect ourselves. I'm not quoting her exactly, but that's what she was basically saying. And if anyone can see that or pull it up on YouTube, that interview, it's worth watching.
Dee Dee,
Okay.
I just wanted to say that I've seen it 3 times already. That's how much of an impact.
You saw it?
Yes. I had to. I recorded a little bit of it also because
I recorded it.
Yes. She was extremely biased when she was asked questions that dealt with white-on-white crime and other aspects of that. She kept bringing it back to, I care about black people, but it was obvious that she was defending the actions of white cops and saying, again, as you said, that we don't have the capability to be able to look out for ourselves. And I intend to put her on blast, really.
Well, I've got the whole thing. It came back on at 4 o'clock this morning, and I taped it. Thank you for taking my call.
Oh, no problem.
I would like
Bye-bye.
to add to that. She also did a book prior to that called "Are Cops Racist?" and I actually have a picture of that, and I used it in a video I did. But again, she's on the side of law enforcement, which she knows nothing about the community. Other than her observation. I did talk to a young black man who says he did this and that. Again, she's part of the problem, actually. She might as well be a police officer in that everything is slanted. But I wanted to bring a point up. You had mentioned about when Dee Dee asked the question about why does it take so long before, certain things are going. There was a sister on the internet, as a matter of fact. She was a former prosecutor in Manhattan in New York City, and she became a defense lawyer, but she was saying that the prosecutors are basically the most powerful people now, and there's been just like a strong surge of prosecutors. The point being is that they're there to make sure, and she spoke about the grand jury, and maybe you can answer this. She was saying how, like, generally when the prosecutor has a grand jury, the defense lawyer may not even be there, so that the prosecutor can introduce all the information that they want to be able to sway the people in the grand jury to make a certain decision, and that if the defendant has to speak with their lawyer, they have to go outside of the room to speak to their lawyer and speak with their lawyer privately and then come back in there. But basically she was saying the whole system is rigged, and she got so emotional to the point where she said, I don't really even care to live in this country anymore. But maybe you can in some way address how the prosecutor, and we know in the case of Ferguson with Darren Wilson and Michael Brown, etc., the prosecutors always have a grand jury. The grand jury always comes back with something that more or less exonerates the officer.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to the point that we talked about. If I'm a prosecutor and my job depends on having a productive, healthy relationship with law enforcement, then I'm less likely to go after law enforcement. I want them to view me as a person who is with them, because they bring the cases to me, and the better the relationship I have with them, the more I look favorable in the public's eye, because I'm prosecuting and coming down hard on these criminals. But I need the police to bring these cases to me for me to prosecute. So you have such collusion there that I believe that one thing that should be recommended, that every time a police is involved in a shooting like this, that is taken away from the regular hands where criminal prosecutions have to go through. So the local prosecutor who knows these police officers who shoot people, since you know them, you should be excused. The judge who presides and deal with police officers, and because they're always in the court testifying on behalf of, against criminals, then he should be excused. I think it should be independent, because you can obviously see, whether we're in law enforcement or not, the collusion, it reeks. It just reeks of injustice and bias.
And sometimes you have family members in both departments as well. So that too would lead to some preferential treatment. I'd like to say to you all that this show is being brought to you by Sugar Ring Donuts. Sugar Ring Donuts. If you haven't had a Sugar Ring Donuts, you don't know what you're missing. Is there a number where people can call for Sugar Ring Donuts?
Yes, 313-550-6397. It's a little taste of heaven.
Give them that number again, make sure.
313-550-6397.
All right. You know, there have been people asking, what can we do? What can we do? There are those who talk about boycotting. I think that's fine. There are those who talk about protesting. That's fine. I don't think it has to be a one-pronged approach. I think that there are those who like to get in their own preference. You know, if they want to protest, then that's what they'll do. Fine. If this group wants to boycott, fine. You know, encourage others to do whichever you decide. But in the meantime, the question is out there: what can we do? What in general do you think would help to make the relationship better, the community issue better?
Well, if we do not get involved with changing the culture of law enforcement, I think to some degree, Chief Craig, right?
Mm-hmm.
The very nature of his approach, his community engagement, he immediately came here, and it was funny to a lot of us. He said, "Look, if somebody come in your house, if this happens, that I suggest you do that, and we have the community's back." He let it be known that, to some degree, that he's with the community. He understands our concerns, what we're going through, and just by him doing that, changed the nature of his engagement with community, traditional police engagement with community. You look at someone who seems to relate to what you're going through. Because for most of us who study this, you have to look at this almost like, let's say if you were a doctor. If a person had cancer of the, liver, you would go to that spot and you would cut it out to get rid of that cancer. Now, when you go to this meeting Thursday, or when they have meetings like this, they talk about law enforcement, how, the black community has a lot of crime, and because of that, we have to do such and such, such, such. But we have to put this in context because we're conflicted based on the racist narrative about how good the white man is. So we have yet to come to terms that it's not all police officers in these poor communities who are killing black people. White women who are police officers aren't killing black people. Black folks who are police officers aren't disproportionately killing black people. Hispanics aren't disproportionately killing black people. You see, it's the white man. Right. And he has a history of when he occupies the space of law enforcement, Native Americans tend to just die. Black folks tend to just die. There's a murky circumstances where Mexicans die when they interact with him. He's been, he has almost like a sociopathic psychology when he's dealing with people of color. But we forget that all these other people, Arab Americans, all these folks are police officers, but black people aren't dying at the hands of these other folks. So it's something about him and how he engages people of color that you end up, the outcome, people end up dead under his watch. But the white woman, that's not happening. The Arab police officer, the Mexican police officer, the black police officer, just something about him. He see things that's not there. He see guns. You ask to go grab your wallet. In his mind, you're grabbing something else, even though you're saying, I'm grabbing my wallet. But this is not happening with any other of the psychologies of police officers, part of that department, other than just him. He is the cancer that needs to be cut out. But since we have bought into the narrative that he is this great man and, he's the image of Jesus Christ, we don't want to look at, well, who's killing black men in our community? Disproportionate. Who is doing it? Just him disproportionately out of all law enforcement officers around the nation. When he engages with people of color, a lot of folks end up dead.
Excellent point.
Wow.
We are at the bottom of the hour. We want to go to this clip. We want to ask you to stay tuned, and we will also want to ask you to have neighbors, friends, family, acquaintances view the program here at WHPR, and we'll be right back after this break.
It's you liberals who have lifted them up, Howard.
Paul, you conservatives make a mistake. You can't afford to strangle hope in people. Without hope, people become dangerous.
No, Howard, you liberals have let them invade our society. You give them jobs, political jobs.
Paul, you missed the point. It's only the smart ones we move up.
That makes it even worse.
No, we have to move them up. If we leave a smart one in the ghetto, he might develop into a leader against us. But if we raise him up into white society, we neutralize him. He feels compelled to try to act like us. He loses his identity and his racial anger, if he has any. He becomes alien to his brothers. They realize he sold them out, and they grow to hate him. He becomes worthless to them and safe for us. No, thank you. In fact, in his love for the creature comforts, except for his color, he's become one of us.
They got to answer to him. He's the boss.
Oh my goodness, that was a quick break. Wait a minute. I thought the clip was 2 minutes. We only had 35 seconds. Anyway, we're back. Thank you so much for staying with us and being tuned to Feedback, a positive image production by Hood Research. And again, my name is Theo Broden, co-founder of Hood Research, and my co-host is Thabiti Mpinda, and our guest this morning is Professor Michael Griggs. But first, I want to let you know that if you are enjoying the program and have enjoyed past programs, and you want to help to sponsor the program like Sugar Ring Donuts, then you can write a check or money order to WHPR if you prefer, or to Hood Research. But we would like you to mail it to Hood Research so that we can be sure that it gets credited for this program. The mailing address is Hood Research, P.O. Box 4416, Detroit, Michigan 48204. Again, mail your check or money order to Hood Research at P.O. Box 4416, Detroit, Michigan, zip 48204. Thank you for your consideration, and thank you for staying tuned with us. You know, we talk about what can we do to change things, to change the culture. I'm really interested in this press conference that's going to go on supposedly today regarding Detective Wheatley and the racist comments he has made. You wanted to share something, Sabine?
Well, actually, I want to go to the callers, give them a chance, but I do have questions for Professor Griggs.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Would you share your name, how you're viewing us, and what city, please?
My name is Mr. D. I'm watching you on Comcast Channel 90, and I have a question for the professor, if he was aware of a recent ruling that the Supreme Court made it permissible for police officers to lie during an investigation. It was related to a case, I guess, where a police officer had supposedly assaulted a gentleman at a gas station, and he had two other officers where they were witnesses, and during the investigation, they said that they didn't see any assault, but then they had a videotape of the assault from the gas station's video cameras. And so I guess Prosecutor Worthy then charged them with obstruction of justice and other crimes.
She did
and they
or
went
did
to
not?
appeal, and basically what they're saying is because during the investigation, the officers were threatened with the loss of their jobs, so this violated their Fifth Amendment right of self-incrimination. And so it went all the way to the state Supreme Court, and they upheld this, so they basically had to throw out these cases. So in the light of, all the issues we have around policing and dealing with, especially the African-American community, how is this going to affect the relationship as they talk about, re-educating police and things of that nature? And you got a Supreme Court here in Michigan that upholds something like that. So I'll get offline and let the professor and you guys talk about that if you're familiar with this, because this just recently happened in June.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that information. I was not aware of the state Supreme Court's response. However, it brings up the desperate need for us to be concerned about those individuals that we elect to be judges. We know that we've had Supreme Court judge of the state of Michigan kicked out, and recently, I guess, last thing I heard was she went to prison. A judge. Isn't that special? We need to be concerned about the judges that we elect is desperately urgent for all of those of you who can go to candidate forums to ask your own questions to determine for yourself who you should vote for. That should be done immediately. And the election is on August the 2nd for those who are not voting absentee. And you also need to know that we have had another judge who is dead politically by the name of Ruth Carter. She is not on the bench. So if anybody votes for her, they're doing us all a disservice. Because if she wins by her name being on the ballot, one, she's not taking the seat. And the governor, who you know has killed children in Flint with lead, and the minds of the children in Detroit educationally, and who might he appoint to that seat? Professor Griggs.
Yeah, I haven't heard of, I wasn't aware of the recent, I wasn't aware of the recent legislature or the Supreme Court action, so I have to look into that about, law enforcement.
Yeah, but the state Supreme Court has ruled against us before, so that's par for the course. Yes, next.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Would you share your name, how you're viewing us, and what city, please?
Hey, this is 6-4. How y'all doing with the BD and your guest?
Oh, fine. Right. Thanks for calling.
Man, I think what your guest is saying is definitely on point. But what I also would like to add to that is that mental complex that runs deep within those Caucasian dudes is not just with blacks. Because I used to, as Malcolm X said, I dated a white girl before. And being in a house, I've seen things that really blew my mind. You know, in their community, the Caucasian male is well protected. And while they do what they do to us, they are inflicting just as worse within their own family. And I've seen it with my own eyes. They have no love for women at all. No natural love. For every compliment that I gave my girlfriend's mother, her father would knock it down. Wow. He never admired her. She was only good for a few things. And with black men, we are taught to love our women. Whether they're our mother or our wife, we have a natural love and respect for women that Caucasian dude do not share in his mind. They, in their own community, Theo, will ostracize one another. There was a girl in that community who was raped by the captain of the football team. And everyone, including the grown-ups in that little town, was writing her letters about how she shouldn't tell on him because an important game was coming up. Look at the mindset of him.
Wow.
They ostracized this girl to the point she wanted to kill herself. Her own people did this to her to protect the image of that Caucasian male. And the thing of it is Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, who put it so eloquently, when you're looking at genetic annihilation, it doesn't ring a bell in people's head like it should, because ultimately that's what they may be facing, genetic annihilation, because they're not able to give them healthy children. Like for years, people in her family, women couldn't get pregnant, and they thought it was them until they met some of my cousins, and they got pregnant. It was never the woman. It was something about that Caucasian male. And the deeper you get into what makes them tick, and it ticks them off when you are historically conscious and genetically conscious about what's going on. Because I have no reason to feel inferior because of my skin color, and because I am genetically superior, you're going to do everything you can to make me mentally inferior. So I'll never, ever tap into my genetic inferiorism.
That's
I'm
good.
like my brother. A lot of them are a cancer, but if they were smart, they will sit at our feet and learn and come together with us so we could help them survive. Because no matter how many brothers you knock off, you will never produce enough of them. You will never produce enough of them. Hell, a black child, they done hit us with the crack. And in the womb, under the auspices of crack, we done have babies come out and be millionaires.
Yeah. That's
Look at the superiority in that child. In spite of a brother going to prison for 20 years, he is not. I remember I was reading a story about General Lee when he was talking about the black soldiers, and this is so deep to BD. He said every time we had a war in the South, the white soldiers, we would have to console them after the war. Don't kill yourself. Don't shoot each other. It's okay. He said, but I go over to the company of the black soldiers after all of this murder and mayhem. They having fun. They dancing. They singing. They preaching. It's almost as if they never been to war in the first place.
Wow, thank you so much for that input. Speaking
Appreciate
about inferiority, which king was it that kept killing his wives because they didn't have a male child? Because he didn't have.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Thank you for calling. They didn't have the knowledge that it was the male that determines the sex of the child. And the education that you talk about that is out there meant for the white male child.
Oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And in the midst of this saga, with all of this, most of what's really important is not what we see, it's what we don't see. That shares a lot. And what I mean by that is, despite if it's the young black boy, despite if it's the older black male, tall black male, if it's a black woman, no white community in America have felt outrage to protest about these injustices. We need to think about this. The community where these white officers come from, no white community in America. We have had some young white people who have came and joined Black Lives Matters in protest. But no white community have ever seen any of these things as an injustice where they felt to rally and protest, if nothing else, but against injustice. And that speaks volume about the mindset. And we have to be complicit too. Because now we have black people living in these homogenized white communities, right? And they see, and they're watching television, they know it's an injustice, right? But their community doesn't respond at all. So we can ask, Troy, where you at? Waterford, where you at? Bloomfield, where you at? And our people brag about these communities who are watching children who look like theirs die at the hands of injustice, and their community remain completely silent. Our people live in those communities and support those communities with our tax dollars that are silent about black lives being lost on a day-to-day basis. You see?
The lines are full,
Go ahead.
we got it going on today.
Yeah, all right.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Would you share your name, how you're viewing us, and what city, please? You're on the air, caller.
Next.
Okay. Hello, caller. You're on the air. Would you share your name, how you're viewing us, and what city, please?
Am I on?
Yes.
Okay, I am a first-time caller, and I'm really enjoying this show.
Thank you.
I would like to know what you guys take on when they use that bomb, that military bomb, to
right. I'm so glad.
His brother down there in Dallas.
I'm glad you
now,
brought.
This is not the first time this happened.
I'm glad you brought that up.
25 years ago, today, they had an organization named MOVE in Philadelphia.
Yes.
Where they dropped incendiary bombs on them and wiped out 65 homes.
Right.
With those brothers.
Yes.
Now, this was the first time this ever happened. Them bringing those military tactics that they using over in Iraq and Afghanistan now. Why haven't they did the rest of it? That element, that criminal element, all the other terrorists. Why hadn't they used such a weapon?
What is your name, sir?
What's
your name?
Expound on that.
What's your name?
My name is Melvin.
Thank you, Melvin, for calling. Thank you for being a first-time caller. I'm very glad that you brought that up because I had a discussion about that last night. The man in Dallas, Texas, who has been reported as a sniper. Okay, seems it smells to me like a cover-up, like for Kennedy, Malcolm X, and all the other cover-ups that they have done. If this man was a sniper or the sniper, why would they send a robot with his extension bearing a bomb? Why not have a what is that called? Pepper spray. Why not have a there's a chemical which escapes me now that paralyzes people. The same as the stuff if you want to down a lion, you can shoot them with a tranquilizer gun. They could have done that kind of thing. They did not have to blow the man up. They reported to us early on that they wanted to find out if there were others involved, why he did it. They continue to ask all of those questions. However, they sent a robot in with a bomb to make sure that the media didn't hear what the man had to say, that they didn't ask the man what he had to say, why he did it, etc. My concern is that there may have been someone else who shot these 11 or 12 officers, and I'm not convinced that it was the man that they killed. Michael.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was something unusual that I'm not used to seeing. And ironically, the little white guy who shot up the church, they was able to apprehend him and then take him to lunch because he said he was hungry.
Oh, good.
And then take him to the precinct. So, you know, we see this with our own eyes, the double standards of how black folks are treated from every aspect of life. And somehow now we need bombs and robots to apprehend suspects.
Now, wait a minute now. The white guy that murdered the people in the church at the Bible class.
That's right.
Was hungry.
He was hungry. He
so
told
they took him
to
Burger King and bought him something to eat.
Hamburger and fries.
Now
after he murdered all those people. After he murdered all those people. He said, but before we go, I'm hungry. Can you give me something to eat? And they complied.
Now, usually in the jail, they have bologna sandwiches. They're going to, anyway, the beating.
Yeah, we're gonna go back to the phones, and then I'm gonna introduce a question somewhere in the mix.
Oh crap!
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Would you share your name, how you're viewing us, and what city, please?
It's your boycott Burger King. I'm sorry.
Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Next.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Would you give us your name, how you're viewing us, and what city, please?
Okay.
Okay.
Your question.
Okay. Last try.
Okay.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Would you give us your name, how you're viewing us, and what city, please?
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
Your
Well, one of the things I was going to give a quick anecdote and then go to a point I want Professor Griggs to answer is that if anyone remembers the movie Training Day when Denzel Washington and the others planned to kill a particular guy who had a lot of money because Denzel was trying to pay a debt. They were all standing around saying, we got to get this story together. We're going to say so-and-so came in the door, and he took a shot, so they shot an officer in his bulletproof vest so that way they could legitimize the story. One cop didn't want to comply with that, but he went along anyway because he saw that the other cops were saying, oh, you're not on the team with us, that kind of thing. But what I wanted to get into concerning Micah Johnson, the alleged sniper, is that and somebody posted this on Facebook, and I appreciate people who put knowledgeable, intelligent stuff on. He was saying that when they spoke about Micah Johnson, they were saying that there's some sort of psychological issues with him, where had it been a Caucasian who did the same thing, they'd say, well, the frustration in him or something. So they couldn't even see the frustration in Michael Johnson, which I don't condone what he did because I have family in law enforcement. But they had to characterize him, as they do with us anyway, as someone who had a psychological issue. So how do you deal with the idea, or what would you say to the idea that the media tends to continue to play the whole psychological game of influencing us and how we perceive things?
Well, the racist historical narrative is, in every aspect of life, something is wrong with us and nothing is wrong with the system. So sometimes it's difficult to rationally engage and even have logical conversation and discussions about this issue. According to white people in general, they think that somehow the Native Americans, the African Americans, the Arab Americans, the Mexican Americans, and Chinese Americans, long time ago, had a meeting. And we decided that after this meeting, we were going to go out and all say for generations that law enforcement is treating us unfairly, that they're killing us and they're doing this. Because in their minds, they just cannot believe it that millions of folks from every group in America that's non-white have these same stories for generations. They just don't believe it, so they are stuck in denial. And denial is to secure and maintain the status quo. So since they haven't had this experience, since things are fine with them, a lot of things are fine with them, just deny it and push it away. Something is wrong with these other people. If you're complaining, like I mentioned about the communities, we get criticized in Detroit for complaining too much, for marching too much, for blocking freeways, for chasing down drug dealers, for closing crack houses. You know, we're all active. But other folks outside our community, I couldn't even stomach living in a place where they say nothing at all about injustice.
And then, unfortunately, we have some of our own people who say, well, that protest is not going to work. Shouldn't protest. Boycott? No, that's not going to work. You know, they flip-flop. One minute they think it will. Next minute they say don't do it.
I'm going to throw this out real quick, and we'll go back to the phone. When 6'4" was speaking, he had spoke about how they treat their women. There's a book that I know Professor Griggs is familiar with. It's called The Iceman Inheritance.
Yeah, by Michael Bradley.
Now, I have to say that the first 4 or 5 chapters of that book is just a little too strong intellectually in terms of a lot of terms people just don't use every day. But if you read from the 6th chapter on, it speaks about how he thinks about his woman and his own insecurities about himself mentally, which has formed the type of being that he is now. And since Michael Bradley is a Caucasian writer, I mean, he's right there in the mix. He's in the trenches. He knows from everyday experience how his people are and everything. But I was glad that he brought that point up, because I've interacted out in Grosse Pointe. I'm an electrician. I have done work, and the things that I've seen go on in those type of houses, the interactions and everything, it could never happen in a black home. I just wanted to throw that out there, that he does have some sort, not all, but some have that deep-seated psychological inferiority about themselves, and because of that, that's why their women couldn't vote until the suffrage movement.
No doubt.
1920.
Yeah, their ideas about humanity, and again, we have to stop denying this reality, because I understand that oppressed people just want everything to be fine. But there was a recent study where they had these people who followed around Trump supporters. And what they did was they questioned them, right? And over 20% of Trump's supporters not only feel that slavery was not a bad thing, they feel that slavery, black folks, should have never been freed. This is right now. Over 20% overtly admitted that black folks, they felt, never should have been freed at all. This is 2016. We're not talking 1966 or 76. This is 2016 right now. Now, over 20% of all of those millions of people, how many out of that 20% are police officers? How many of them are lawyers? How many of those people are teachers?
How many
just
are
regular
judges?
Judges, loan officers, just people you come in contact who feel that kidnapping and holding women in sexual slavery and dismemberment is fine, and you shouldn't have never been free. And that's right now, 2016. 2016.
Donald Trump has really stirred up a hornet's nest of overt racist people with their comments.
Yes, he's pulled the scab back, and we see things like in Grosse Pointe where the children make a video talking about how black people should still be enslaved.
Oh yeah,
this is
that
Grosse
came
Pointe.
out, right?
This is right next door. I could throw a rock and hit Grosse Pointe.
They probably need to be hit. Okay.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Would you share your name, how you're viewing us, what city, please?
Paul, bon appetit, the 3 of y'all.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Really, on one positive note, real quick, shout it out to the Williams sisters. Sabrina took number 1, and they did it in doubles. Anything's possible in the all-white sport. Black girls rule.
Yes.
So keep it up. I'm so, we're words can't explain how stupidity rules and let you go. It's bad. The world is bad.
Well, we have to keep working on it, Paul, to make it better.
Yeah.
Can't get tired. No excuses. You got to keep working on it,
Paul, to make it better.
All right.
Can't
Thank you
get
for
tired,
calling.
no excuses.
You know, that's part of their fear, and maybe you can address that too, how we have shown excellence in everything that we've been given. So how do you see the mindset of European Americans, and Europeans for that matter, because they do the same thing? It's just that we don't have access to their media as much.
Yeah. Well, you know, in my class, Black Psychology down at Wayne County Community College, we look at him, right? And you have to sometimes think about your adversary. Is some reason the Creator made you faster than me, can make you run and jump higher than I can, where you are dominating in boxing, you're dominating in basketball, football, you're dominating in talk show hosts, you're the #1 lawyers and doctors on the planet.
Right.
Discrimination is necessary. You understand? Think about the mindset of other folks who just cannot compete. Racism, we understand that's an attitude. But discrimination is a person who is insecure and need to discriminate so they won't lose in competition.
That's the reason why Snyder's destroying the education in the city of Detroit.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. You had to tell me that, didn't you? 9:59. Oh, my God. 60 seconds to go. Wow. It has been an extremely enjoyable session this morning. And I want to thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
To help us share a lot of the research that you do to help give us another perspective on what is going on. Some other things to think about, other ways to think about the issues that are in front of us, and encouragement that we have to continue. There's no time to get tired, no time to get tired. And as I say, and it's not necessary for you to know everything. What is necessary is for you to know how to find what you need when you need it. We encourage you to join and work with Hood Research as we seek out as much information as we can to help us all make better informed decisions. Thabiti.
I'd like to yield my time to Professor Griggs and have him promote his book.
Oh, a lot of things that I talked about you can find, and more, you can find in Sleepwalking While Black.
All right.
You can get this on Amazon, and you can order you some donuts from Sugar Ring Donuts and eat a donut and read a book at the same time.
All right.
And the phone number once again?
313-550-6397.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tune in again next week. Peace.